Welcome to But What About Me, a career success podcast dedicated to giving a voice to underrepresented populations, or UPs, and helping each navigate their career to reach their highest potential. This podcast is brought to you by JenniferTardy.com. Welcome back to another episode of But What About Me? I am your host, Jennifer Tardy, and today's guest is the dynamic Dr. Carey Yazeed. I read an article that talked about how most Black women who leave corporate America intend to start a business. Now, the whole notion of leaving corporate America to start a business definitely mirrored my own career choice. I wanted to know more about this phenomenon, and Dr. Carey was the first person who came to mind for me. Dr. Carey is well known for helping Black women transition out of their 9-to-5 to start their own business. And in this episode, Dr. Carey addresses whether Black women are being pulled out of corporate America for some special purpose or whether they're being pushed out of corporate America. We talk about why Black women should consider entrepreneurship as a career path. We discuss how to transfer your skills into entrepreneurship, resolving the emotional blocks of fear, releasing the 9-to-5 mindset, and the importance of finding a group of like-minded people. Dr. Carey is a business strategist who specializes in working with women who are tired of the 9-to-5 rat race and desires to be their own boss. She's the author of Lipstick, Heels, and Hustle, A Woman's Guide to Entrepreneurship, and she is the host of Beauty, Brains, and Business on Apple Podcast. To learn more about Dr. Carey Yazeed, please visit drcareyyazeed.com. If you are considering leaving your 9-to-5, this is an episode you do not want to miss, so please stay tuned. If you like what you are hearing, please be sure to take a quick picture on your phone of this podcast and share it with your friends to stay up to date on these new episodes and to follow us. All right, let's get started. All right, so Dr. Carey, thank you for being a part of this show. How are you today?
Thank you for having me. Doing fine.
Perfect. And so I was talking to a friend of mine because I had just read this really, really good article, and I'm going to read you an excerpt of it in a second. But when I read it, I started thinking, I need someone who can speak to this article right here, and I want to bring them on the show. And you were the first person that I thought about because I know your work in helping women to leave their 9-to-5, which is awesome. So I'm going to read this article, and then or a portion of this article, and then I want to ask you your thoughts. So this article comes from Women in the Workplace 2017, and the snippet says, compared to other groups of women, Black women are significantly more likely to say they intend to start a business when they leave their current job. And yet, despite facing more pitfalls to advancement, women of color have higher ambitions to be a top executive than white women. And I loved it. And I'll put a link to the article somewhere in the details section after we talk. But I want to hear your thoughts. So let's unpack this for a second. When you look at your audience of women who are coming to you saying, can you give me some resources on starting my 9-to-5? When it comes to Black women specifically, do you sense that they're being pushed out of corporate America and now they're starting their own entrepreneurial venture? Or do you still think that there's a pulling, a calling, and that's why they're starting it?
Actually, I see a combination. So the majority of the women that I do work with, they have always had this kind of desire to have their own business. And I think that goes back, that is something that's, I want to say generational. Like it's something that's just ingrained in us because there have always been limited opportunities for African Americans in general. And in order for us to have opportunities, we've had to go in and create those opportunities. It's only been maybe, a couple of decades that we've seen where corporate America has really opened up to accept African Americans in general. So, we got to take a look and put that in context as well. So I think the seed has been planted from seeing grandparents and great-grandparents and even parents owning their own business, even if it was something that they did on the side. And so it's something that's kind of, I think, has been expected of us. But as I see women in corporate America who are leaving corporate America, and having been someone, I won't say I was in corporate America, but being in higher education, also being pretty much as I had on a call last night, saying that you're being walked out. You're being escorted out of corporate America. So you come in, we take your resources and everything that you have, and then once we've used you, then we have no use for you anymore, and we have you escorted out the door.
So how would someone know? I love that whole notion of we're basically being walked out of corporate America. Are there any red flags that we should pay attention to that will give us an indication that we're probably being walked out right now?
Yeah, you're on your way out the door. And so some of my personals have been, why are you always angry when you are expressing your opinion? And if someone else of a different culture or ethnic background expresses that same opinion in the same way, they're not seen as angry. So all of a sudden you're finding yourself being labeled as angry. I've also seen where when I went against the grain, and I was like, no, like everybody's agreeing, but that's not right. Then being told you're not a team player. You know, and so when you start to hear keywords, you're angry, you're not a key player, why don't you smile? You know, I had one client tell me that on her job, they asked her, you know, well, your lipstick gives you kind of this ethnic feel. And she was just like, lipstick? Like,
goodness gracious.
You start to feel as if you're being picked on, and you might kind of say, well, is it just me? And you might doubt yourself for a second, you know, might say, you know, okay, it's just my imagination. Usually those are the warning signs that you need to either have an exit strategy, because your exit is coming up real soon.
So some of your clients, it sounds like they've been expressing to you that they got sort of exhausted with that career path, with the traditional, I'm going to go to my 9 to 5 every day. Okay.
Well, I won't say exhausted, because a lot of them have actually loved what it was that they did. So they enjoyed what they did. They enjoyed serving people in whatever capacity that they were, and they went to school for this. So a lot of them, instead of feeling exhausted, they are feeling disappointed that I can't believe I've went to school all my life. I have all these student loans. Like on paper, I look like everybody else, yet I'm being singled out. And so it's more so of a frustration of they won't accept me no matter how hard I try. What's next?
Okay. So the reason why I like this conversation so much too is because, but what about me is talking about career advice. And I really think it's important for anyone who listens to this to recognize that careers, you have your traditional go to work for another person career path. And then you have another career path, which means that you go and decide to work for yourself. And so when you decided what venture you wanted to take on, what made you decide to market entrepreneurship as a career path for women, specifically Black women, to consider?
Well, because in the beginning, actually, when I left corporate America, and one of my roles in corporate America / higher education was doing career counseling and preparing students to go into the workforce. And so when I left, I really just took those skills with me and said, I'll just continue this out on my own. But when I had women coming to me, 99.9% of the women who came to me were African Americans. Don't ask me why, but I was getting African Americans. And they would come, and they would say it was career coaching and career, help me with my career. Let's come up with the strategy. But when you got down to it, I was like, well, this isn't really like, this is a career, but you're really talking entrepreneurship. And so it became a pattern that they were at the point of, I want out. And so it wasn't, I want to go to another place of employment. I want to create my own opportunities. They just didn't know what to call it. And I think some of them were just afraid to say, I want to be my own boss. I want to have my own business.
Now, your career history that led you all the way up to where you are today, did it start as a side hustle or did you walk away completely? Like what was your path and how did it get you to where you are today?
So actually, my background was as a clinical social worker. So I did that for 23 years, had my master's degree, had my license, also had a private practice for 20 of those 23 years. And my private practice was really, I guess you could say, a side hustle. I did it on the side.
Okay.
It felt full time, but I did that in addition to working multiple full time jobs over the 20-year period. And in that, I went back, got my PhD because I had transitioned into higher education. And I was told, as a Black woman, in order to advance, I needed to have a PhD. So
Mm.
I'm the kind of person you give me, okay, that's all I need. Okay, I'm in my 40s, but let me go back and get this PhD. And get this PhD and the bottom falls out. So I have this expensive degree now. I've made people upset. I've start to realize that they only see education as if we build it, they will come, but they don't realize that their numbers are falling. And I see things in a different context. I see things from a business aspect. And so I start to call people out on some things. I start to ask questions about numbers and funding and not realizing that I wasn't supposed to be doing that, and have been told several times, you're not a team player. A team player just goes with the flow. You're asking too many questions. Was once told you're starting to mess with people's money.
That's unbelievable.
And
Okay.
so I was just like, oh, okay then. And so
Mhm.
for me, my departure came from a case of sexual harassment and basically being told, well, you deserved what happened to you.
Are
And
you kidding me?
yeah, and this was said in a faculty meeting. So yes, had my dean to say in front of everyone that everything that had happened to me, I had deserved to have it happen, that I wasn't a team player. And it was at that point, it as I can say, I said some non-Christian things that and,
That day.
that day as I got my purse and walked out and said, I'm not like this is no one. I would never allow an institution or people to have that much control over me. And basically leaving and saying, okay, you just quit your job. So now
Right.
what? Like what happens next? And having to immediately look at my skills, assess who I was as a person, what I had learned over the years, and say, okay, we need to pivot, shift really quick because you have two kids and we got to make this happen. And basically, it became, I'm not going back, not at least not right now. I can't afford to emotionally go back, but I still have responsibilities that I have to take care of. And digging deep inside of myself and figuring out what skills that I had that could transfer into entrepreneurship on a full-time basis, because I had always had a quote unquote business side hustle on the side. So I knew what entrepreneurship looked like and what it took to get there, but on a part-time basis. I had to figure it out on a full-time basis.
Okay. Okay. So, what did balance then look like for you? Because once you decided to leave your employer and now you're able to fully focus on what you wanted to do, what were you balancing at that time? And were there any surprises for you during your transition that you weren't prepared for?
Um, Yes. So balance really came for me. As I said, I'm a single parent. So divorced mom, had been divorced for at that point maybe 8 years.
Okay.
So now it's whoa, I'm at home all day. So no office space because I let my office space go. So for really the balance became, how do you balance taking care of home as far as chores, the kids, running your business, because you're at home and everyone thinks you have all this free time and you really don't. So setting up boundaries of, if the door is closed to the home office, that means I'm working. If the door is open, that means you can come in. No, I'm not checking you out of school just because I'm sitting at home. Like
Right.
Balance came in those areas. I think for me, the surprise for me was actually, I didn't realize how many skills I had and how much could transfer over into me being a full-time entrepreneur. And I say this because in the field of social work, a lot of times we are conditioned, and not really knowing it, conditioned to believe that your skills are only good for the field of social work. And I've heard other professionals since then say the same things. Like, well, all I know how to do is be an elementary school teacher. I don't know how to do anything else. And it's just like, well, no, you know how to teach. And so if you can teach little kids who screaming and hollering all day, you can transfer that over into another area. And so realizing that in myself, it was just like, wow, like this is, and so for me, it was just like embracing that and allowing myself to say, oh, you can do some other things outside of that.
Okay, all right, that's great information too, and I want to dive a little deeper in a second about those transferable skills that you're helping your clients to see as they're beginning to do their own entrepreneurial ventures. But before we go there, I do want to talk about both career paths again, because there are pros and cons to both, and so. If a person, so let's say that there's a woman who happens to be Black that comes to you and says, here's where I am, what should I do? And you were to offer her pros and cons to staying on her traditional path or venturing out on her own, what would some of those pros and cons be?
Actually, I probably would not give her the pros and cons. I would let her, we would talk through them, but I would say, my first question would be, okay, so why do you want to leave? You've contacted me, and contacting me means that you probably don't want to stay at your 9 to 5.
Right.
So
If they're coming to you, the guru of leaving, they're probably already close to.
yeah, I'm like, I'm not the, and I'll joke with them and say, like, look, if you talk thinking about staying at your 9 to 5, I am not your person, because I'm just gonna tell you, pull out a box, girlfriend, it's time to go. So that would be my first question. Okay, so if you're thinking about staying, why did you contact me? Because that's not, I don't even put that in the universe. And so getting them to kind of say that out loud, and then if that is real heavy in what they want to do, me being honest and saying, I support you in whatever decision that you want to make, but I think you might do better with a career strategist. And so here's a list of people, let me refer you and send you, and because they can better help you. Where I am and what I do, I will just take your little vision of staying on your job and that's going to go out the window. And so my thing is, if that's what you want to do, I'm not the person. And so, but I let them know that's okay. If you want to stay, that's perfectly okay. It sounds like you might need to change jobs, not careers, but you might need to change jobs. And if that's the case, let's get you in the hands of the right person who can help you get in that position that you truly deserve. That's the position God made for you. But if you stay with me, we going in a different direction. So I'm very honest with them about that. And so some of them will say, well, yeah, I thought I wanted to start my own business, but yeah, you're right. And so, okay, let's moving right along. And I'll put them in the best hands that I can find.
And what's so interesting is that I'm a career coach by nature, right? So I would be one of those people that you're like, well, go talk to her if you want to stay in your career. But at the same time, I am an entrepreneur. And so I get both sides of it. And I tell people all the time that working for someone else supported me for a long time. And I'm very grateful for that.
Right.
I'm very grateful for that season of that support. But now I'm in a different season where this environment supports me better. And so I'm able to still provide career coaching. So I completely agree with you that it's not for everybody. And but if you're reaching out to me, then it must mean that you want to know more about this over here.
Right. And so let's talk about the pink elephant in the room. Like, we're not going to ignore it. It's doing pirouettes. Let's have a conversation. do you really want to leave, or does this just sound appealing because of social media? So we're gonna have that conversation, and in that, I'm gonna hear what's really going on, and if it is, I really just need another job. Like, I'm tired of my boss. I love my career, but I can't do the job anymore. Then I don't do resumes. I don't do cover letters. I'm not gonna help you prepare for an interview. You need to go see X, Y, and Z. So and that's just knowing, for me as an entrepreneur, knowing your limitations and knowing your strengths. And my goal is never to take advantage of anyone or to take anyone's money. I just need to put you where you need to be, and everybody's happy in the end.
I like that. So I have so many questions for you. I'm trying to write them down so I don't forget. However, we talked before about transferable skills. Can we unpack that a little bit? But in addition to that, you just mentioned something that I like about staying in your lane too. So now we're talking to women, in this scenario, Black women who are coming to you and they're like, I don't know what else I'm supposed to be doing. How do you help to coach them through that, in addition to what you were saying earlier?
And so when they come, and so I get that question a lot. So it will be, well, what is my purpose? Like, I don't know where to start. I don't know what my skills and talents are. And so my response is usually, yes, you do. You've probably been giving it away for free. It's just coming second nature to you. And you didn't even think that you can make any money from this or charge people for this. And so that's when I give them a series of exercises that not only includes them doing some self-reflection, but it also involves them going out and soliciting the help of their family and friends. And if they have coworkers, those people as well, to find out what they see as their strengths. And if they had to brand them, what would be key words that they would pick out that describe them? And then going back and saying, now let's talk about your skills and talents again. And tell me how these words connect with those things that you really like to do. And so helping them to make the connection, because a lot of times they haven't made the connection. It's just, I like to sew. Nobody's going to pay me to make an outfit. Girl, where you been? We got me on Mimi G doing, all these patterns. And why you think no one's going to pay you? And so getting them to see that that can be you too. But you got to give you first, you got to identify that that's a skill and a talent that you have and that you can monetize it.
So, okay. But what about me? What if I'm sitting at my desk, and what if there is a person listening to this that's saying, what about me? They're sitting at their desk and this is all they've ever known. Are you saying that the first step is to come to talk to someone like you, or is there a step in between?
If you're sitting at your, so if you're sitting at your desk right now, you're listening to this and you say, girl, look, that's fine for everybody else, but what about me? Like, all I know how to do is be a secretary. That doesn't mean anything to me, Dr. Carey. And then my thing is, you're wrong.
Yeah.
You've just never taken yourself out of the context of only being a secretary, or only being an accountant, or only being a housewife and a soccer mom. You've never taken yourself out of that box that you put yourself in. So come on over here and let me take you out the box. And I'm going to show you how to think bigger and broader about yourself and those skills that you have from being a secretary. Let's see how you can use them in other areas, and how in other places they're maybe not seen as secretarial skills. Maybe they're seen as a virtual assistant. Maybe they're seen as the chief of staff in higher education. Like, let's unpack it, girlfriend. So I take the limitations off. And so I make them uncomfortable. I really do.
I was going to say that. I was going to say, Dr. Carey, that sounds like a very emotional process. Now, am I underestimating that, or is it? How do you carry someone through those emotions? Because you're now saying, see yourself larger than you are. Do you find that people are emotional?
They're scared. Mm-hmm. So I get a lot of imposter syndrome. Oh no, like that can never be me. And so and as candid as I am on here, I am with my clients. And so I will say, and explain to me why not? Like, why can't that be you? What if I see one thing? So you tell me what I need to see. And, they kind of stumble. And again, I'll say, trust me on this one. Just for 1 second, I want you to see yourself the way that I see you.
Wow.
And I give them that permission. And so it's usually more so the fear. And that's usually the first session. The first session is going to be filled with fear. I don't know what I'm doing. I will, I'm going to tell them, you need to pray about this. Like, have you consulted God? And if they married, I'm like, the next person you need to consult is your husband. Like, go talk to your husband, because if this is going to include some money, y'all need to be on the same page. And really giving them exercises where it's really looking at your skills and take off the titles. We're not going to have any titles. Just look at what are the skills that you have. Because a lot of people hide behind titles.
Okay. It's really, really hard for a lot of people to be able to say, who am I without this title?
Without the title. To be able to give you keywords of, this is who I am and this is what I do without a title. And so that's something that I work really hard with, even with myself, is when people ask me, what do I do? I don't lead with the title. I lead with keywords. This is what I do. And then someone will say, so, well, what is that called? And I say, oh, the title. Yeah, this is the title. But I don't lead because of being in corporate America for so many years, I held on to that title. And so knowing that that title doesn't define you is really the skills that you have as an individual that defines who you are and what it is that you do and how you serve others.
I love that. So I love the whole notion of releasing the title and being very intentional about that, okay, so your title is one thing, but what you do is a very different thing. Be connected to what you do. Don't be connected to the title. Titles come. I love it. And I think that this is a great transition into one of my favorite topics, emotional blocks. So you have a book, Lipstick, Heels, and Hustle, A Woman's Guide to Entrepreneurship. I love it. Lipstick, Heels, and Hustle. So talk to us a little bit about the whole notion of emotional blocks and how you help women to overcome those.
Well, actually, kind of talking about that earlier, the emotional blocks that I usually see is I just never saw myself doing that, or I'm not good enough, or imposter syndrome. Like, do I really have the skills? And you're just sitting, and these usually come not in the beginning. Imposter syndrome usually comes once I've gotten them out there and they're trying entrepreneurship. Then it becomes that first product. They've created it. It's beautiful. And I'm saying, launch it. And then I check in and I say, you still didn't launch it. And why didn't you launch this? And and then I start getting all the excuses and I listen. And then I say, okay, let's unpack this, and we're going to unpack it. And at some point, if I see that emotional blockage is going beyond coaching, then I'm going to say, look, I don't do therapy, but I think before you go any further in the entrepreneurship journey, you need to go talk to a therapist, because there are some deep-rooted issues that if you don't resolve, you're never going to be an entrepreneur. You probably will never be happy in corporate America because of those issues. And a coach can help you with those. That becomes the job of a therapist. Then I get a whole different set of excuses of why they can't go see a therapist. And I say, yes. So let's go on psychology today. They have some great therapists there. Let's talk about your insurance plan. So those emotional blocks sometimes can be so big and they don't even realize that they've been there all these years. So it can be the abuse. It can be living in poverty and not having enough and not allowing themselves to move forward. So it's sometimes it's those blocks that have been there, and they, again, generational. They've been handed down from one generation to the next. And I say, okay, I'm staying in my lane. That's not my lane anymore. But I recognize what's going on. You're going to need to see a therapist. And helping them to find the right therapist, and saying, and when you finish, I will still be here. I will still be your coach, but I can't work with you right now. You got to go unpack that. And then when your therapist releases you, come back to me and let's finish what we started. And being that support for them.
Yeah, and you're like, hey, go over here and handle this one phase first, and then you're going to be much more successful by the time you get back over here.
Yes, exactly.
So the next question that I have for you, it truly resonates with even an experience that I had on my end. So when I transitioned out of corporate America at the end of March this year, there was this whole 9-to-5 mindset that I had to release. And so I'd love to hear from you on, your clients and how you have to help them to transition out of that 9-to-5 mindset. And what does that even mean?
Right. And so again, a lot of people don't realize that they have a 9-to-5 mindset. And so the 9-to-5 mindset is, I got a paycheck coming in 2 weeks. I have a paycheck coming in a month. And I can sit at my desk all day on Facebook if my job allows and they not monitoring technology. I can be on Facebook all day and I'm still going to get paid. Well, that doesn't happen in the world of entrepreneurship. You got to get up and you got to hit the ground running. You got to have goals. You got to have financial goals. You have to have action steps on how you're going to reach them. You got to have a plan each and every day. If you're waiting for someone to tell you what to do, because that's what happens in corporate America. That's what happens with the 9-to-5. You have a job description. You have a boss that's saying, hey, okay, I need you to do X, Y, and Z today. Y'all have a staff meeting and everybody, this is what we're going to work on this week. When entrepreneurship, your staff meeting is you.
Right. Correct.
You're sitting down and you with a cup of coffee like, okay, what we working on today or what we working on this week and how does my action plan work? Because in the 9-to-5 world, we don't realize that that's what a staff meeting is that your boss or your supervisor saying, this is what our action plan is for this month. This is what our unit goals are for this month. They've thought all of that out for you. Now you have to think it out for yourself. It also means sometimes you're not sitting around in your pajamas. You got to get up, get dressed, put on some makeup, and do video conferences with people. Because some people have this notion of, oh, you guys just sit around in your pajamas. And I'm like, no, I don't think I've ever had a day where I have kids, first of all. So I got carpool. There is no pajama day, okay? But it also puts you in that frame of mind of I'm getting up, and even if I'm walking a few feet down the hall, I'm going to work. Except this is mine. I'm the boss. I have to have those meetings with myself. I got to give myself a pep talk, give myself deadlines, and I can't sit on Facebook all day.
That's right, because nobody's paying you to sit on Facebook anymore. And I think another big thing, too, was the realization that I don't need 15 other people's permission. Like, there's no other permission. Like, it's my decision, but it's also my risk at the same time, too. That was another big thing. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And I think in 9-to-5 and in corporate America, you're waiting for someone to tell you that your idea is good.
There you go.
Say, that's a great idea. Go for it. Well, when you're entrepreneurship, sometimes I'll sit here and actually, some people hear him. My little dog is sitting on the floor, so he's a part of my business. And so I will say, well, Sam, well, what do you think? And he just looks back at, you know what, Sam, that's a good idea. We're going to go with that one today. Sam is like, he's my amen person, and all he does is just blink and say, when are we eating lunch,
Right.
But you don't have to wait for anyone to give you permission. And so if it feels good and you've done all the work, then you just got to dive in with both feet and let's see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Now, is there a realistic timeline for transitioning? And I think even more than that, before you can say that you're stable, not even successful, just stable with your business, what's realistic?
I think realistically, if you're transitioning from your job, I always say you need to sit down and see how your job can assist you in your transition. And this needs to be, you set your timeline. Like if you're going to leave on a good standing. Now, if there's a layoff, then sometimes you don't have control of the timeline. But if you do, and you can say, okay, let me shoot for 6 months to a year. This gives me time to build up my savings. This gives me time to shop around for insurance in case I don't want to do COBRA. If they offer different training programs, let me take advantage of these programs. But now I'm taking advantage of them in a different mindset. I'm taking advantage of them because they're going to benefit me when I'm out there on my own. So my thing is, use your 9 to 5 to fund your entrepreneur dream. Let it help you to make that transition. And you set your timeline. What's comfortable for you? If you have a spouse, if you have a family, factor them in. You know, I don't want anyone coming to me talking about their husband or left them because they quit their job and forgot to consult their husband. Like, no, he should be a part, or she, you know, your wife should be a part of the decision process. And once you leave, if you built that foundation and you have some funding, I always say you need to start working on your entrepreneur, your business, your dreams while you're still in your 9 to 5 and figuring things out and what works and what doesn't work. So when you leave, you got a smooth system in place. But because you're going to have some rough days, you know, so people are on social media making it seem like entrepreneurship is the greatest. It takes a certain mindset. It takes some grit. You will cry a whole lot.
Right.
You looking at your bank account like, okay, I need some clients. Like, but that becomes that driving force. That becomes what makes you work even harder to make it happen. But you've got to be prepared for that. And so I think for myself, it took, I'll say 6 months to a year before I was like, okay, I'm getting the hang of this. You know, this is a lot different than doing this part-time. So for me, that was a big transition and making the numbers work. And then once I figured it out and I had my system, and that's the other thing, everybody's different. Everybody's system is going to be different. And just because your system of entrepreneurship doesn't look like the next person, it doesn't mean that your system is wrong. But when it works for you and it feels good for you and you're hitting your goals, you have reached the promised land.
Good.
Keep going.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And so my last question, I've been doing a lot of research lately on what's happening with Black women. And you know, statistically, we're heading more households. We are single mothers. We're actually the biggest tithers in church. We're doing the most in the communities. Yet we're working twice as hard in corporate America, earning half the amount. And so thinking about all those things that we've been facing, there's a woman out there that's saying, hey, I still like to do this, but I'm nervous.
Right.
What's your final word of advice or words of advice to that woman who knows what's already, you know, facing her, but she still wants to do this and she's nervous?
I say you need to make sure you surround yourself with like-minded people. And if your goal is to move into another job or a different career, then you need to find people who think along those lines. And so I would suggest going on LinkedIn and finding groups. LinkedIn has a ton of professional groups. Getting in some of those because those people think like you. They understand you. When you ask questions, they have resources and they have answers where everybody else won't. Entrepreneurship is the same way. They have different membership programs. I even have one, a VIP program, where I bring women together and they have this space where they can talk about balancing motherhood, working a 9 to 5, and I have one person here, she has 3 businesses on the side. And we just sit there and we ask her, well, how do you balance it all? Like, and
Right.
she gives us this whole like list of resources and what it is that she does. And so, but again, they all walk away and say, man, that felt good. Like I'm ready to go you guys just gave me what I needed, where other people, they just kind of look at me and just say, what are you talking about? Like, aren't you happy? You should just be happy. And so my advice would be, find a group of like-minded people, find a tribe of people who understand you and who can truly give you the support that you're going to need in whatever journey you decide to take.
I like that. And Dr. Carey, you are awesome. I appreciate you. What do you have going on over there? So what's happening in your world, and where can people find you?
So people can actually find me on my website, drcareyyazeed.com. I am all over social media pretty much the same way. So it's called branding, people. So Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. My platform is usually going to be LinkedIn. That's where you can find me because of the population that I work with and what it is that I do. But right now, my book came out in January, Lipstick, Heels, and Hustle. So
congratulations.
Thank you. And that's been an experience. So that was my first book that was written from a business perspective for women, because most business books are written from a male perspective, even if a female's name is on it. And I wanted to give an honest look at what women go through. And like you said, the emotional, what are we thinking emotionally? Imposter syndrome, all that stuff, just unpack it, and how to be a successful entrepreneur. And then on top of that, I have Boss Life Academy, where I have like these affordable self-paced courses and my master classes, from coaching to starting your own business is going to be there. And then I have my VIP program, which I spoke about earlier, where women it's a group of women that come together at least twice a month in a group setting. But we also have live trainings where I bring in experts to do trainings with them, and they have access to the self-paced courses, and it's at an affordable price. So, I'm trying to make entrepreneurship as easy and as painless as possible and give you what you need to reach your goals.
No wonder you have such a massive following on LinkedIn. You offer so many resources.
I try.
I know about a lot of them. I didn't know about all of the resources.
Yes.
So I'm going to close this out the same way I do with our other guests, with flash questions. I have 3 flash questions for you. And when I ask, just tell me the first thing that comes to mind for you, okay?
Okay.
Okay. So the first question, it's never too late to
get started.
Love it. Number 2, I get inspired by
my kids.
And lastly, career success means
doing what feels right to you.
Oh, what a great way to end the show. Thank you, Dr. Carey. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor.
I hope you enjoyed today's show. Be sure to tune in next week, because we have so much more in store for you. Until next time, keep going, keep growing, and keep glowing.